Okay, here we are, tier 1. Number 6, Thor Ragnarok. So one of the reasons I actually put Thor Ragnarok as number 6 in the bottom of tier 1 is because of all the superhero movies that came out last year, Thor Ragnarok is actually the only one I saw more than once in theaters. I had to go back. It's that fun. And Chris Hemsworth is at his best in this movie. Is it exactly like the Thor from the comics? No, he is very different in a lot of ways, but for the MCU, it works. The Thor that's so much more, you know, medieval and Norse and, you know, Shakespearean and just all about honor and stuff like this is great, works in the comics super well, but for some reason it just wasn't landing completely right in the MCU. But the Thor from Thor Ragnarok is perfect. He's super funny. The movie as a whole is very Guardians of the Galaxy 1 style humor and intergalactic travel, and all the characters in this movie are just cooler in this movie. And that's one of the things I like about all of my favorite MCU movies. Even though lots of them have characters you've seen in other movies in them, it's almost always like the best version of that character you've seen yet. So for this movie being the 3rd Thor movie and the 5th appearance of Thor in the MCU, it's the best Thor we've seen yet. It's also the best Hulk we've seen yet, I think. Maybe not Bruce Banner, but definitely the Hulk. The Hulk is great in this movie, and it really adds depth to him as a side character, different from Banner. Not just that, Loki's great in this movie. It maybe isn't Tom Hiddleston's best Loki, but it's still really, really good. Valkyrie is a great addition. She's awesome. And Hela, I think, is a good villain. It's not maybe the best villain in the MCU, which I still think would probably be Loki, but it's very, very good. So Thor Ragnarok, number 6. Number 5, Iron Man. So Iron Man gets a lot of first-time awards because, again, it's the first movie in the MCU, and a lot of the MCU owes its greatness to Iron Man. And just because of that, it kind of moves up a bit in my mind. It makes it a cooler, more important movie. But the great thing is, it can back it up. It's got so many good moments in this movie, and it sets the precedent of all the other future Marvel movies to follow. The precedent of being funny and having a lot of heart, and not taking itself super, super seriously. Those are all things that people sometimes level as criticisms against the MCU, but I think it's really made it its own thing. In a world of so many superhero movies, I think it's good that the MCU has differentiated itself, but at the same time, it definitely has a lot of depth within itself. Not all the movies are exactly the same, but they all follow a fairly similar pattern to Iron Man 1, of really having a lot of humor and a lot of heart. Iron Man 1 also gets so many points for just having Robert Downey Jr. in it. So many points. I remember when I heard Robert Downey Jr. was gonna be Iron Man in Iron Man 1, I was like, who's that? And my dad was like, oh, did you see that movie, The Shaggy Dog? He's the bad guy in that movie. And I was like, what? That guy? And yeah, I know Robert Downey Jr. had been a more famous actor before, but there was a string there where he really wasn't in much. And Iron Man is what launched him into superstardom, and Jon Favreau, as the director of Iron Man, making the choice to have Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark is maybe one of the single greatest decisions in the MCU. We wouldn't be where we are today in the year 2018 with Avengers Infinity War coming out if it wasn't for Iron Man 1. So Iron Man 1, number 5. Number 4, Guardians of the Galaxy. Now, I've already talked a lot about Guardians of the Galaxy in relation between it and Guardians of the Galaxy 2, but again, Guardians of the Galaxy is awesome. It has such great stuff in it. And one of the greatest compliments I can give to Guardians of the Galaxy is the fact that even for people who are fairly familiar with comic books, they probably still didn't know who the Guardians of the Galaxy were. They are very, very lower B-string characters. And this iteration of the Guardians of the Galaxy isn't even the most common or famous version of the Guardians of the Galaxy. This is the newest version of the Guardians of the Galaxy from the comics. And again, they just weren't that well known. All the compliments to Marvel for making these characters who no one had ever heard about into household names. It's also the funniest movie in the MCU and has great performances and acting in it. So, Guardians of the Galaxy, number 4. Number 3, The Avengers. So this might come as a surprise for some of you, but again, Avengers is number 3 on my list, and that's because it starts slow, but it ends so strong. For the first half of this movie, does it have very many GME moments? No, it really doesn't. It has great character moments at times. It has cool little action set pieces. But the first GME moment in my mind in this movie is Thor versus Iron Man. And once that scene starts happening, you're like, okay, this is what I came to see. In concept alone, the Avengers is such an ambitious undertaking, especially at the time. All these heroes from various movies coming together. It's a lot to have to juggle. But a saying in my house is, in Joss Whedon we trust. All of the members of my family are just huge fans of Joss Whedon, and when we found out that he was gonna be directing the Avengers, oh, we were so excited, and he delivered. Again, the movie does start off slow, but once you have Thor versus Iron Man, you then have Thor versus Hulk, which is awesome. That scene when Thor reaches out for his hammer, comes to him, and he spins and whacks Hulk. Oh, when that happened in the theater at midnight when I went to see that movie, the smile on my face was bliss. And outside of those couple of moments, the last 40-minute epic battle of all the Avengers coming together and fighting the Chitauri army is be it the GME moment of the spinning around shot where we first see all the Avengers together, or the tracking shot later in the fight where we get to see all the Avengers fighting separately and ending with Hulk sucker punching Thor. The end fight of this movie is what all superhero movies try to be like. It's amazing and makes the Avengers my number 3 pick in the MCU. Number 2, Winter Soldier. Now, I almost could have done the same thing with my 8th and 7th place with my 1st and 2nd, but I feel a little more confident that my 1st is number 1 and my 2nd is number 2 in my mind. So, the Winter Soldier, even though it's one of my favorite superhero movies of all time, I still probably put it in number 2. And again, the reason I love this movie so much is because it, more than almost any other movie in the MCU, takes characters that I already liked and made me love them even more. Everybody is better in this movie. Every character from another movie in the MCU that then appeared in this movie, they just became cooler. Captain America is the man because of Winter Soldier. All of the action in this movie is amazing. Be it the elevator fight, the fight on the boat at the beginning, the highway chase, or even the ending. It's just so cool. It makes you love Captain America so much. Or at least me, and that's why I'm so excited. I'm losing my voice because I love it. It's 200 beats a minute bad. Black Widow, Nick Fury, even Maria Hill are so cool in this movie. Maria Hill is cool in this movie. Not only that, we still have the addition of the Falcon, which is a great character to the MCU, and Robert Redford as the villain I like it. I know it's the classic, you see it coming a mile away, guy in charge who's the pinnacle of good is actually the bad guy in disguise. I'm not saying it was really trying to trick you, but it works in the movie. The Winter Soldier is also a great villain in my mind and makes me care that much more for the character of Bucky in the MCU. It makes him now one of my favorite characters in the MCU. All of this is credited to the Winter Soldier, my number 2 pick. Number 1, Civil War. I know there's a lot of people who say there's too much going on in this movie, but to those people, I just say you're wrong. Plain wrong. This movie's amazing. And I know I'm biased. I love comic books, and that's one of the reasons I love this movie. Some of the things in this movie are just comic books come to life. That's why so many people talk about the airport sequence. It's such a fight that no one ever thought they'd get to see. You never thought you'd get to see a giant man with Spider-Man swinging around his legs and then War Machine and Iron Man coming up and double punching him. Those things we weren't supposed to be lucky enough to see on screen, but we did, and it's awesome. But on a more objective movie note, I think everything in this movie works. I think the dialogue and writing in this movie is some of the best in the MCU. I think the pacing is excellent. I think all of the characters in this movie are potentially at their best. And yes, I even mean characters like Iron Man. I think this might be the best Iron Man in the MCU because Robert Downey Jr. kills it in this movie. He can still be funny and witty in scenes, but then the emotional heartbreak he says in this movie is unparalleled in the rest. So his performance, all the action, the story, I love it all so much. I can keep talking about this movie for forever, but I won't. Just know it's my number 1 pick, and if anyone has any issues with it, even the Baron Zemo problem that people bring up, I will give you my explanation for why that's actually not an issue in the comments below. But drop me a comment because this video is already going to be too long. So that's it. 1 through 17, my ranking of the MCU. Let me know in the comments below if you completely disagree with me. I'd love to hear it. Let me also know if you agree to a point, but you move some movies around, but overall the same tiers you have as well. Because I'd like to know if there's similar people out there, if this is all just in my head and it's not, the same for you. Left arm. It's hurting. That can't be good.